Hi guys, just gonna do this week's view in the markets, starting with the dollar index. This is a monthly time frame. As you can see, price did recently come into a fair value gap, which is a bullish fair value gap. Looking for price to potentially rebound to the upside, having taken out all the liquidity below these lows here. Also, price did sort of have a rejection from that level. If we move now to the weekly time frame, what we can see is a similar thing in terms of price coming to this key area. However, we do look still bearish on the weekly, especially after last week's candle closing so bearish, engulfing the previous 3 weeks candles. So we're likely to maybe see price potentially revisit the lows again before trading higher. So weekly time frame, we are definitely on the bearish outlook. When we move to the daily time frame, similar thing here. We can see that price did come into a fair value gap over on the left side here. We've then had a move to the downside, breaking this level here, making this an order block. It did also break below an inverse fair value gap and had pulled back to it on Thursday, which now Friday's candle was a nice bearish candle, showing that we're definitely looking to come to the downside. We've just come to sweep liquidity under here. So potentially looking for price to pull back to today's candle might form a bearish fair value gap. So something like that. We get price come back into this area and head to the downside for dollar index before moving a lot higher. For us to have a more of a long term or medium term bullish on the dollar index, we want to see price break above or break market structure to the upside, and then also hold that structure. As you can see here, it did break higher, but it hasn't held on the longer time frame. So yeah, looking for price to come to the downside again. We might get a deeper pullback up into this order block just here. So we may get, or price could potentially come back into this fair value gap and have a wick up into this area. We need to look at what news we have for the week, and then we can determine when we should have that sort of manipulation. And then yeah, that's the daily time frame. So not going to go much further down than that. We do not have much structure on the 4 hour. We have these candles to the upside forming a bearish order block. So that is also marked with the same thing here. So yeah, we can now move on to pounds. This is more bullish, so we will look to trade this to the upside as we're looking to, as we're bearish on the dollar index. If we were bullish on the dollar index, and then we would look to trade shorts on the euro dollar because it's a weaker currency. So on the monthly time frame, what we can see, last month's candle didn't do too much. So yeah, looking to the weekly for more clarity. What we can see on the weekly here is last week was a very bullish candle, which is why I'm looking to trade this to the upside and not euro dollar. We came back on the previous week into this fair value gap here, which it did indicate that last week should be nice and bullish, which we did get that nice follow through there. So potentially we can get price to pull back into an area this week. We haven't got much guidance yet, but as the week goes on, we can see what price might do. We can have traditional level of support here. Also had a level there, so this does have some liquidity there. If we have this week close as a fair value gap, then we will look to price to pull back into this area here. However, looking on the daily time frame, what we can see is once again we might get a nice fair value gap forming here after today's close. Today is Monday, bank holiday. So yeah, in Europe and in UK especially, we might get price pullback into this area and shoot higher. There's not much else to look at on daily time frame. If we were going to get a deeper pullback, then we would look for price to come into this, or we have a nice order block here or mitigation block here. We can have price pullback into that area or this area here. Another block just in here as well. So that's what we're looking for on dollar index, and on pound we'll have a quick look at maybe gold and then the Nasdaq to see what we are looking at this week. So for gold, choppy price action we've had for the past few weeks. On the weekly time frame, we have a fair value gap here, supporting price, keeping price above this area. A couple of weeks ago did pull into that area, had a nice reaction. So technically we are looking to the upside at these highs just here. Yeah, so last week did show some form of direction as it was a bullish engulfing candle. So now we can look to head to the upside. Price does look like it's pulling back into last week's order block candle here. So that is an area of demand, which also aligns with this sort of block here. We've had price already pull back into this fair value gap and then move higher. So now we can get a bounce from this area. I would potentially wait until the candle closes and then tomorrow for price to take out today's lows. So I'll indicate that maybe on an hourly time frame in just a moment. But there's not much else on the way to the upside. There was or is this small fair value gap just here. But I'm expecting price to pull up towards or break above that level just because we are also still bearish on the dollar index. So if we're looking at go to the 1 hour time frame, we will look for price to potentially take out today's lows, and then so let me just mark up what I'm looking for. Tomorrow we'll have price pull down to take out these lows here and then potentially move higher. That will be a nice reaction. We also do have a few fair value gaps below Friday's London lows, so a nice area would be for it to come into, I'll mark up both, but I'll potentially prefer it to move into the lower part of this. That is also just below Monday's lows and Monday's London lows, sorry, that's here, and then also Friday's London lows, which is here as well. So that would be a nice area for price to pull back into before moving higher. If you look at it on a 4 hour time frame, you might see that it's also, yeah, we've got a 4 hour fair value gap here. But of course you can refine it on the 1 hour into, yeah, probably the lower part I would maybe go with, or we can look at the 2 hour time frame and see, yeah, similar to the 4 hour there. So that's what we're looking for, price to pull into that area, looking for price to move then higher, and form a fair value gap maybe on a 15-minute time frame, and then look to take longs from there. And then lastly, we'll look at very quickly the Nasdaq. So on the Nasdaq, very quickly show the monthly, see what we're looking at the monthly time frame. So a long wick, potentially showing that we're going to make new highs in the coming months. On the weekly, last week it took out the previous week's high, so looking potentially to pull a bit lower. We have a fair value gap in here, also coupled with a volume imbalance from here to here, so that is a strong area of support. We also have an inverse fair value gap to the left, all the way over here, which did provide some level of resistance when my price did move lower. So this is a very key area. If we can get price to pull back lower, I will be taking longs on a medium to long term basis for new highs. And then looking at the daily time frame, we did see that with Trump making an announcement that he's going to put 50% tariffs on EU imports, price did shoot lower, but it didn't hold. So it came into a fair value gap on this time frame. I'll just mark it out with these lines here. Excuse me, there we go. I'll mark it out with these lines here. So we've got this fair value gap in here, which is quite a wide fair value gap. I would like it to go a bit lower again to get into this area. Price might not do so, so you can still trade it on that basis. I'm potentially looking at a 50% retracement at least to come to discount. So we will look at the highs just there. So yeah, I'll definitely look at to come into this area before taking longer term or medium term longs. You can still trade it where it is now if it shows it's pushing higher. I prefer it to move into discount. So once it does come into discount levels, also confluent with this area here, We have a nice order block up here before price did move lower, which is now going to be a mitigation block. So yeah, this area here will be nice for us to move higher. You know, you can scalp before then, but that's what I'll be looking for. I want to everything to line on the higher time frames. Please let me know what you want to look at next week, potentially, you know, some exotic pairs or looking at US oil, anything at all we can look at, and we hope you do benefit from today's video.